Elise Schmelzer is next. She's the criminal justice reporter at the Casper-Star Tribune. She's previously written for the Washington Post, the Dallas Morning News, and the Colorado Springs Gazette. When she's not working and reporting, she spends her time riding horses and wandering the mountains. Please welcome Elise Schmelzer as she presents No Known Family.
I had been in Casper just 3 months when Connie emailed the newsroom. She's the county coroner. Usually it's us calling her, asking for the status of an autopsy or for statistics. But she had a different kind of case this time. A veteran had died recently at Wyoming Medical Center, and it became her job to locate his family. The problem? The man had been homeless and poor. She couldn't find them. I feel that if this were known, she wrote in the email, first, community might attend his funeral, and second, someone might come forward with information that would be helpful for me to find family to let them know of his death. We met at her office on the outskirts of town. Winter was just starting to set in. She told me what she knew about him. He served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. He had previously lived at a community for homeless veterans in Southern California. He had a documented history of mental illness. He liked Bruce Springsteen. He had recently traveled to Sheridan, where he got sick. Medical staff moved him to Casper for better treatment. He died lonely here. His name was Stephen Raymond. He was 63. Connie worked with the funeral home to organize a service for him and notified the County Veterans Council, but she wanted more for this lost soldier that came to her on a gurney. Connie is a straightforward person. She deals with death and tragedy regularly. What was it that made her reach out? What makes a person go above and beyond for a stranger? You don't ever want to look back and think you could have done more, she told me that day. I wrote my story, my editor posted it online. I went home, fed my cat, went to sleep. The next morning, my inbox and my voicemail were full. People from Casper, from all over the state, from all over the country wanted to know, what can we do to help? I was baffled. I called Connie. She was being deluged with messages too. We did our best to direct people to the right resources. 2 days before the funeral, Connie found Stephen's sister, who said she would come. But based on the chaos in my inbox, I knew people would still come to the cemetery chapel, even if it was snowing, even if a family member had been found. It is easy for people to say they care about veterans. It's easy to post an image of a soldier on Facebook or put a yellow sticker on your truck. But it's not easy to take time off work to trudge through the snow for the funeral of a man that this community never knew. It is not easy for the police department or the fire department to pause their work for a few hours to give a stranger a funeral procession. It is not easy for a stay-at-home parent to bundle up the kids and keep them quiet during a memorial service. I got to the cemetery about 45 minutes before the service started. Already, the parking lot was almost full. There were dozens of people lining the road in their heavy winter coats and work boots, waiting. When Stephen's body arrived in the long black hearse, some saluted. Others put their hands over their hearts. We packed the chapel and spilled onto the snowy cemetery grounds. A pastor spoke, sketching the details of Stephen's life. In the front row sat Stephen's sister, Diane, seemingly small in this room of strangers. He was a man who lived a solitary life for many, many years, the pastor said. But at his final goodbye, there was a room full of community. As the pastor spoke, I looked at those who came, veterans with patches from Vietnam, Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freedom, young women in freshly pressed ROTC uniforms, men in heavy work boots covered in dirt, women with babies. The nurses from the hospital's ICU were there. They were with Stephen when he died. The middle-aged woman who leaned against the wall next to me and shared her tissues. What about Stephen made hundreds of people stand in the snow and the wind for his service? I don't know. Many told me they came to pay respect to a veteran, someone who gave of himself for the good of us all. The placards and the flowers from around the country thanked him for his service. Many were from other veterans. Some were elaborate. Some were signed by many names. But my favorite was simple and anonymous. From a grateful nation, it read. But I also think it was something more. Perhaps because we all feared dying far from family. Maybe we all saw a little bit of our own lonesome and struggle in this stranger and thought maybe we could retroactively heal it. That was one of Diane's fears for her brother, she told me that day. She feared that her brother would die alone on the streets. that he would be buried in an anonymous grave in an unknown part of the country, that she would never know whether he had passed, that his death would never be marked. Instead, she said she was overwhelmed. There was so much love, she told me that day. I listened to a lot of Springsteen when I wrote these stories, hoping to understand Stephen a little more, to know him as much as I could. This part, From a Hungry Heart, struck me. Everybody needs a place to rest. Everybody wants to have a home. Don't make no difference what no one says. Ain't no one like to be alone. Everybody's got a hungry heart. I can't speak for all who were there, but I felt the lyrics fit the moments we experienced in those chapel walls. I played that song over and over as I wrote my last story. But even still, the crowd meant something larger, more abstract, than the sum of the individual reasons people came that day. Community is never homogeneous. Community is not about where people are from, their politics, or how they pay their bills. Those are statistics, not identity. Ultimately, a community defines itself through action. Identity is created in the moment that a community chooses to take a stand for something or someone. That day, I felt I learned more about this town than I had in all of my conversations in the 3 months before. It made me proud to be a part of it. People told me they were proud of their town too. They were proud that they could give this man a hero's funeral. But what made Stephen a hero? The easy answer is his military service. I believe that soldiers are heroes. Serving is a sacrifice. My father served during the Desert Storm, and his time in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait shaped him. And through him, it shaped me. Connie, the coroner, her father was a veteran too. He served in World War II. But Stephen was also an alcoholic. He was homeless. He struggled with mental illness. These characteristics aren't often applauded. These are attributes I see ridiculed and mocked in the comments on our Facebook page every day. If we hadn't known Stephen was a veteran, would we have come? Would I have written the stories? Would there have been bagpipes in an overcrowded chapel? Who would send flowers? Lots of people die lonely. These questions don't have answers, and they don't negate the beauty of what this town did that snowy November day. I just ask that you ask yourself these things. It is easy to feel love or pain for a person when they are abstract, when they are a list of attributes in a newspaper, when they are a character and not reality. You can mold that person and their abstract to your own story. But people in the flesh, people with problems and contradictions and hypocrisies, peoples whose identities seem so foreign to your own, those people are harder to find compassion for. I do ask that when you see a homeless person, or speak with your friend who is an alcoholic, or talk about people with mental illnesses, or those who need public services to feed themselves and get by, you remember the humanity you felt towards Stephen and his loneliness and his struggle.